Okay, we're joined now by Mr. Frank Csoka, and it's interesting. Frank got in touch with me based on the article that appeared in the New York Times. He had heard about us and reached out to us after he had just paid a visit to his old hometown, Woodhaven, and it was great when he reached out to us because he told us about his father, who was a major artist and a very talented man. His father, Stephen Csoka, who had a studio here in Woodhaven. He's got artwork in the permanent collections of over 34 museums in the U.S. and abroad, including the Brooklyn Museum, the Met, the Whitney, the Library of Congress, and his son created a book on his life and art entitled "Endless is the Way Leading Home: The Art of Stephen Csoka." And they lived for over 30 years here in Woodhaven. Frank Csoka joins us now. Frank, thanks for talking to us.
Yes, fine. Good evening.
So now tell us a little bit about your dad as an artist. How would you describe his work?
He's a romantic realist. He was very interested in painting in human beings and animals, and he studied at the Royal Academy of Budapest in 1922 to 1927. Mm-hmm. So he was really trained, highly trained as a master artist, and he was a great draftsman. He did a lot of etchings and paintings. So
now you say his work is in a lot of museums around the world.
Yes.
And I was amazed when I Googled his name. I mean, just a ton of work came up. Right. So he is really well regarded around the world.
Yes, he is. I mean, he was born in 1897 in Hungary, mm-hmm. and he came here in 1934.
Okay.
So by that time, he was already established in Hungary, but it was a long time since he was back there. So he may be better known here because he worked here from 1934 to he died in 1989. Mm-hmm.
And you say he had a studio in the house here in Woodhaven. So now, tell us first of all about the move to Woodhaven here, because you had sent me this book, and I want to thank you for it. I've had a great time going through it, and I had to get it back from somebody because I loaned it to them. They really enjoyed it. Marital milestones, and yeah. these are drawings that your dad gave to your mom on each anniversary.
Correct.
And it's great looking through these. And what's really interesting is also the different styles throughout the years.
Right.
I guess depending on what was going on in their lives at the time.
Yeah, and my father, I have 70 years of his work. I have his first painting and his last painting. So.
Wow.
And he never, he tried a lot of different things, and over the years, his palette changed, his colors changed, the way he paints changed. So when I look at the work now, I can kind of identify what he did in the 30s and what he did in the 40s, mm-hmm. and so forth. The anniversary drawings are really interesting because he gave my mother one of these drawings, watercolor paintings, every anniversary, and in that sketch he would kind of wrap up what happened, what were the important things that happened in the previous year in their marriage. And he had a very good sense of humor, and I look at it now and I can remember, I can see when I'm going to be born and mm-hmm. everything that happened of major importance in their lives. So it's kind of nice because it has a human touch to it. Then they were very close.
It's a very personal collection. I really enjoyed going through it, and this one here from 1963, right. when your family moves to Woodhaven here,
right.
it's nice because you say here that there's a lot of work needs to be done on the house. and he's here on a ladder. It looks like he's got his work clothes on.
Right.
And then there's a stork flying through the air.
Right. So that was the interesting thing about that. When my father came here from Hungary in 1934, like I said a moment ago, he was rather well known there. He had won many awards, and he was really considered a fine artist. But when he came to the United States, no one would look at his work because he was a foreign artist, and there was no interest to look at a foreign artist's work. Mm-hmm. So for the first 7 years that he was in this country, he was actually a house painter. And he would work all day and work with lead paints and calcimine, and it was really, really difficult work. but he would come home at night, and then he would paint well into the night. And so that the image you're talking about from 1963, it's funny because he again becomes a house painter. He's climbing up a ladder to paint the house in Woodhaven, and so that's returning back to what he did early on in his career.
That's interesting. That's fantastic. That's great. It's a great picture, and we look forward to sharing these kind of pictures with folks. Now, one of the pictures you told me, one of the paintings about involves the Forest Park Carousel.
Oh yes, I knew that would be of interest to everyone. In 1966, that carousel burned down, and I had been riding in that as a child, and it was extremely beautiful, and the horses were just incredibly well done. And it burned, and my father was living only a few blocks away on 87th Street, so he went up there and he made a painting of the burned-out carousel, which is quite an amazing painting, and I will show that when I give my lecture. I knew that would be of interest to people because it's a big event that happened there.
Sure, this was something that was devastating at the time, and many people who younger people don't even realize that the carousel that's up there was actually brought in to replace this one. So this will be and it's funny. There's not a lot of photographs of the original carousel.
Well, what's interesting is I have a slide of the burned out carousel.
Mm-hmm.
I just have a slide, and then you see my father made a sketch. What's also interesting to people, I think, when they see how an artist works, I have a painting that I'll be bringing, a small painting, which is my father's sketch on the location with oil. It's an oil sketch, but then the finished painting is quite large, actually, and you can see how his mind works and the changes he makes to make it into a painting rather than just a burned-out, gutted carousel. So that in itself is kind of an interesting transformation. You asked me before, I want to get back to that point. My parents lived in Bushwick, Brooklyn, for about 23 years, and I had a friend of mine who lived a couple of blocks away from 87th, maybe 2 blocks further toward Woodhaven Boulevard. And it was through my friend, when I was in school, I went to visit him a lot, and he said, there's a house here for sale, and I told my parents. Well, I mean, they had no idea about Woodhaven, and I wouldn't have either if it wasn't for my friend living there. So that's exactly what happened. I told my parents about it, and then they saw the house and fell in love with it.
Wow, that's great.
That's how they wound up there. It's like unexpected kind of.
And they lived here until the 1987.
Yeah, well, they moved there in '63, and they actually lived there till 1989. In 1989, they moved out to be with my sister. And my father had failing health by then. He actually passed away in 1989. He was never sick in his life, which was pretty amazing. He had all his teeth and his hair, and he had a very, very good life. I don't remember my father ever being sick in the hospital, except one time he had food poisoning, which I guess is easy to get when you're eating in a sandwich shop in New York. But
sure.
Other than that, he was a really healthy person.
Oh, God bless him. That's great. When you're working with your dad's collection, does that really bring you? I mean, how much closer does it bring you to your dad when you're working with it?
Yeah, well, we taught together. My father taught at FIT, and I taught at FIT, and we were very, very close. It was funny. Some of the students used to say that they were going to study with Csoka the Elder in the morning and Csoka the Younger in the afternoon. And I still I'm in touch with some of the students that I had in the mid-'70s, but who had both of us, so that's kind of an interesting story for them. I mean, I'm so familiar with this work, it's what I'm doing now. Just the thing, the marital milestones is actually an exhibit that's happening a year from now. But what makes that show interesting is that in those marital milestones, when he began winning awards for his artwork, I actually have the art that he won the awards for. So the show is going to be more, in my mind, more interesting than what you usually see, because you'll see the drawing and then I'll put the work up. And I'll put work up that he painted in Brooklyn when they lived in Brooklyn. and things like that. So the show was kind of interesting from that degree.
Mr. Csoka, I'm really, again, we're really excited to learn about this piece of Woodhaven history, and we're so grateful you're going to come out and share it with us.
Yes, if you have a moment, I got one quick story to tell you.
Sure, please do.
How my father started as an artist. You know, I went back to Hungary when I was researching the book, and from what I was told, there were never any artists in my father's family, so it was unusual that he came about. But what happened was he was in World War I, and he was a prisoner of war, and when he got out of the war, he got a job in a bank as a bank teller. And one day he was working in the bank, and in the next window, a very interesting man came. He said he had an interesting face with a strange beard and everything. So my father sketched him, and when he did that, the gentleman saw that my father drew him, and he kind of grabbed the drawing away from my father and walked away. And about 5 minutes later, there was a phone call from the president of the bank asking that my father come to his office. So my father was very, very nervous because it was difficult to get a job in those days, and he thought he was going to lose his job. And when he walked into the office, he saw the man sitting there and the bank president, and the bank president said to him, and he started apologizing immediately, and the bank president said, "No, this is very good. Do you have any other work?" And my father said yes, so he brought some things that he had done, and actually the bank president sponsored him and sent him to the Royal Academy of Budapest from 1922 to 1927. So that's what happened, and that's how he got started as an artist.
That's fantastic. I mean, that's a great story, but it's also a great example of how someone's kindness, someone's act of generosity could really change someone's life.
Totally, absolutely.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, listen, we look forward to seeing you on the 27th, and want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us tonight.
Great. Okay.
Thank you, sir.